Hello, trappers! Welcome to the Trap, the Last Dance reaction series. I am Lockie Edwards, and joining me in this is Lewis Wells, Johnny Miko, and Vincent Miko. So, the Last Dance reaction series is a brand new limited series coming to you from the Trap. Which what we do is each week we watch The Last Dance, a brand new Netflix show about the Chicago Bulls and their final last dance towards that last championship in the 97-98 season. And we will be talking about it, what we enjoyed it, and just giving you our thoughts, our reactions, which is something we look forward to doing. And last night in Australia, which was came out at about 5 Australian Eastern Standard Time or something, we saw episode 1 and 2 on Netflix, which was very exciting. So, Vincent, after seeing the episodes, what was your favourite part of episode 1?
Thanks, Loggy. Thanks for the intro. So my favourite scene from episode 1, it was an awesome start to this series, I reckon. But when Michael was being asked about the article, if he read the article of that stated Bulls travelling cocaine circus, I thought that was fantastic. When he got drafted in 1984 and he came in as a rookie, and just him telling everyone that story of him walking in one night in that party in that hotel room and coming in with lines of cocaine in the room, weed, women, and him just saying, F that, I'm not going to be caught up in this crap, and just left that night. I thought that was, really refreshing, because I haven't really known that side of Michael. I didn't know if he was in drugs or, he was into that crap, but him at such a young age keeping such a clean and straight, level-headed mentality was, it was good to see. It was very motivational, in my opinion. He didn't drink. He kind of just stayed at home. I thought it was fantastic that just his mentality was put on show there. I thought it was great. That was my favorite.
I loved how he said, when that was really funny, and how that all sort of, that cocaine Bulls traveling circus, that was really funny. But when he said back then he didn't do it, he never sort of denied it, because he's sitting there with a scotch and a cigar, you know what I mean? So,
it was a very political statement.
Yeah, I feel like back in the 80s, I can only imagine, because that was really funny, and I was thinking about that. When these guys are on the road, and especially a bad team like the Bulls were before, Michael got there, and cocaine was quite a prominent...
Oh, it was massive.
And drugs were, in the NBA at least, these bad teams, what these guys would have been doing, I just think that's hilarious. And I would have loved to be in an NBA environment back then in the 70s and the 80s. It just would have been through the roof, I reckon. So, yeah, you just never know what these guys have done.
You'd be in the line area.
It would have been a crazy dynamic, yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point. Gianni, what was your favourite part of episode 1?
Yeah, hey guys, good to be here. Favorite part of episode 1, basically just the reintroduction of Michael Jordan, which obviously they focused heavily on. It was... I'm going to piggyback off the mentality vibe that Vincent had, and finding out, I suppose, an in-depth view from his life, his mentality that he had, I guess, and he always had that competitive edge. The reintroduction of Michael Jordan to the basketball world, to new fans and to old, was really inspiring to watch again. There wasn't any particular standout moment. It was mainly just the whole thing. Seeing this great Bulls team, their lead, basically, the best player that the NBA has ever seen, was just amazing to watch again. Just be reintroduced to the story of Michael Jordan and the 90s Chicago Bulls, and just the story of how they got there. That was my favorite part, really.
Yeah, did you have what was your favorite part, Louis?
Episode 1 was pretty great. I suppose if we're sticking to the, the competitive mindset that Michael Jordan had, and the confidence, I suppose, from that aspect, I loved how he sort of described, or, he depicted when he got drafted by the Bulls, that he wants to turn that franchise around to be like the Lakers, the Celtics, and the 76ers. And it's pretty cool how, him being 21 years old, he said this, and then, he pretty much lifted him to be one of those teams that are now, considered great teams that the NBA has seen, you know what I mean? So obviously, the 72-10, the 6 championships. So I think that was pretty cool how he sort of said that after getting drafted, that he wants to turn that franchise around and make them what they are today. And he did that at 21 years old. He predicted that, and that's what he did. So that was pretty cool, I thought, from a competitive standpoint. But there was a lot of cool things going on in episode 1. I really loved how Jerry Krause, the GM, when they sort of just very briefly introduced him. It's pretty smart directing. They really sort of developed the characters, even though they're human beings. They're still characters for the sake of a documentary. And as soon as they introduce him, you sort of know he's the villain in a sense. He gets picked on. He's a short, fat guy. As mean as that is, I also loved how he was exiting the practice facility, and the guy, he gets in his car, and there's this big scratch on the side of the door. I don't know if you guys picked that up.
No, I didn't pick that up.
You think the GM of the Chicago Bulls fixed that up or something? I don't know. Maybe that's just his personality. Obviously, he's passed away now, so you don't really get the chance to hear his side of the story from that aspect. But I think it's really creative the way that the directors and the producers of the podcast sort of set these characters up to make them hero villain in a sense of the sporting environment, which I guess we can get into. But also just briefly want to touch it. Steve Kerr, he looks exactly the same, right?
Yeah.
The guy hasn't changed a bit.
Yes, has he?
You're exactly right. Yeah. His age,
Just
he can say age well or bad. I guess it depends how he looked originally. Well, I guess, has he aged bad or has he aged well? Was he already looked old when he was young? That's what I thought. I thought he looked old when I saw him play. I was like, wow, you look pretty old for a fit, in shape NBA guy.
Yeah, he's got a very mature look to him.
Yeah.
And I think it's just carried over into his older age.
He's got a chivalry look.
Yeah.
Chivalry look.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He's a guy that tuck his shirt in on a date, look respectable.
Oh, you mean chivalry?
Yeah, chivalry.
What do you look like on a date, Louis?
No, not like Steve Kerr, I can tell you that much.
One thing that I really enjoyed about the first episode was, obviously we saw the whole pressure Jerry Krause was putting on the team in that final season, saying, this is your last season. And we all saw that and saw how they're responding to all that. And then when Phil Jackson took them all into the room and he had the last dance written on the whiteboard, but apparently that was common for him to always have a theme with each season. And I thought it was a huge goosebump moment. I thought it was pretty sick hearing that. And obviously we all know they go on to win it, but we don't. But when you see it, you're like, wow, that's pretty inspirational.
Even though, like you said, we know the win, seeing their perspective from that moment, not knowing whether they win, I agree, Lockie. Seeing, when he held the folder up and said the last dance, I thought that was a really cool thing. I didn't even know. Yeah, I'm like, well, obviously the title makes sense now.
It is cool because you and Spetty both touched on it. We all know the outcome. We know that they win in Game 6 in Utah with the shot, but you sort of question if they're going to make it out of the season, even in the playoffs. From episodes 1 and 2, you're like, wow, this team was really on edge, and you don't know if they're even going to make the playoffs.
And the whole Jerry Krause,
it was bare bones, yeah.
The entire Jerry Krause, I didn't even realize the drama that was going on, to an extent with that team. And that's another thing I'm really enjoying about this and the fact that it was, even though they were winning, consistently, they had the best player in the NBA, they had a fantastic team. Hearing that was the last year, the GM just decided that, it's like, and then seeing that dynamic in perspective with MJ and the way he approached the game, and just the respect for basketball and seeing a player's point of view and just, I guess, a business side and how it can collide. It's been a fantastic series so far. Very insightful.
You know what? All 4 of us here probably didn't, or, maybe we had a small idea, but because we're not at that age, where we were growing up around this team, we didn't really know about this and the full-on setbacks. And, in episode 2, there's so much more to go deeper into that, but I didn't realize how popular these guys were. These guys went to Paris where, the connectability back in 1998 or 97, whenever it was, isn't as good as what today's day is. You know what I mean? They didn't have social media, but still they go to Paris in Europe where, English isn't spoken. And they're walking around, they're like king of the hill. And I thought some of the questions from the European reporters were like, what do you think of the Eiffel Tower? And Michael Jordan just keeps walking. Or when he's getting mic'd up to go into the show, and then he quickly asks for his autograph after he mics him up. He mics him up, he's like, oh, can you sign this? And Michael Jordan is like, come on, man, you can't be serious. What a cheeky devil, eh? Why wouldn't you do that? Micing up Michael.
I know,
hey,
right?
Can you just quickly sign this for me? I thought that was really cool. So
you definitely felt the presence of these players, especially the presence of Michael Jordan and just how much of an icon he was from that first episode. You definitely, like you were saying about characters, it really cemented the characters of the Bulls team really well in the first episode, I thought.
Yeah, no, it was a fantastic episode. It was a great foundation, and when those credits rolled, you just couldn't help but continue watching episode 2.
That's it.
Oh yeah, just quickly for the last bit, I think my second favorite bit was just the end of that episode when the theme song started playing and they were reading out the players walking in.
Yeah.
Man, that got me pumped.
It reminded me of 2K11, and the intro into that as well, which is a good memory of my childhood. But it's very, very, it gives you goosebumps, like you said. I think that's a good segue into the second episode, actually.
Yeah, so episode 2. 2 in a row, the double whammy. What did you think of episode 2? What was your favourite part of episode 2, Gianni?
Episode 2 was finding out the god-awful situation Scottie Pippen was in. I was nowhere near, informed about how crap his deal was. And just the amount of tension there was between him and the GM of the Bulls at the time, Jerry Krause. Yeah, so finding out he was ranked 122nd in the NBA in terms of salary was just mind-blowing to me. I had no idea. That was my highlight, I guess. Obviously more, there's so much I loved about the episode, but the thing that really stuck with me was just finding out his whole situation.
Vincent, what was your favourite part?
I had a few. I guess I've already touched on Michael, so I could go back to Scottie. Just seeing, because I never really looked into, I know of Scottie Pippen, I love Scottie Pippen, but really seeing his backstory and him talking about how he was growing up and his, family had, I think it was 12 kids, and him growing up having 2, his father and his brother, physically disabled. Growing up, I thought it was just quite a humbling and inspirational story just to hear, and really made me see Scottie in a different light, because I always saw Scottie as this tough guy kind of persona, and it really gave me a different perspective on him as a player, and I thought that was awesome to see and watch, and it really made me feel for him more than later on finding out his crappy deal, and it definitely made you feel for him. But that was my favorite part, just seeing his backstory and how he got into the NBA.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Scottie Pippen, he has a really distinct voice, right?
Yeah.
It's I'm Scottie Pippen. Yeah, I can't do it. But it's nice to see that his whole family sort of sounds like that too. They go to his brother and it just sounds exactly like Scottie Pippen.
Even his mom too, it was fantastic.
But I have... Spready, do you want to talk about the deal? Did you have any thoughts on the bad deal that Scottie Pippen ultimately signed?
Well, I suppose with that deal, it's when we look back at it now, because we know the big deals now, I think when that deal did come to light, it was a big deal for its time. It's just the deal got outdated because he'd signed it so early, and then all the deals started happening. So I think the deal in the moment wasn't as bad as we all see it now, but I think Scottie Pippen did a great job in describing why he signed it. He wanted the long-term security for injury. It was actually a selfless decision, so he knew he signed that he could support his family for the next 7 years, do everything he wanted to do, and look, he signed it early enough in his career where he was going to get the money after if he stayed fit. But obviously that deal worked well for the Bulls because it gave them flexibility in other ways.
It's funny you say that because there has been a lot of backlash. Not a lot of backlash, but I have seen a lot of people say, it's his own fault for signing the contract, yada, yada, yada. And you know what? It is. But it was interesting that, the owner of the Bulls even tried to, bargain against the GM and say, Scottie, you're not signing a good deal here. But like you said, he sort of clarified why he signed that contract, but I find it interesting because in the 97-98 season, when this is the whole season that the documentary is based around, and in the second episode it's sort of about Scottie Pippen, he sort of requests a trade because of the whole contract situation, you know what I mean? And obviously he was getting shafted by the GM, but I feel like the tension boiled over from that contract he was on.
I think it's more than the contract for the demanding of a trade, at least what I got from that episode.
You're right, but I feel like this show kind of pointed it to believe that it was because of the contract. But interestingly, that was the last year of the contract, so if he was still on it if he went elsewhere. But the show did point it towards that it was the contract, but I think there's more stuff than that.
And the fact that Krause is open to trading him as well, and then the whole deal about how much money he's going to get after this as well.
But we see that every team does that, and we know that now being fans, it hasn't changed. essentially every player is untouchable. Essentially.
Yeah.
Obviously, he's not Michael Jordan. He's Scottie Pippen. And Michael Jordan comes out and says, I wouldn't have a championship without Scottie. Scotty's the best teammate he's had, which is all good and well. And it's true. What Michael Jordan said is true about Scottie Pippen, but
Yeah.
I think, yes, you're right. There was more to it for him demanding a trade and being unhappy. Michael Jordan talks about it in the not in the podcast, sorry, the show. They were sort of disappointed in Scottie Pippen for doing the actions like getting the foot surgery when he did, and being openly, I guess, rude or maybe not being nice to the GM Jerry Krause. They were sort of disappointed in him. That's what I felt like, and I feel like yes, there were other reasons why he was like that, but the catalyst was that contract he signed 6 years ago.
Yeah.
Well, touching on what your comments just really quickly. It was funny coming into the second episode for me, looking at Jerry Krause. I kind of actually felt a little bit sorry for him coming into the second episode towards the end. Even though all of this, drama and conflict was going down, I still felt a little bit sorry for the guy because he did a really great job. In the end, he, structuring that team, that championship team, and, being that guy that's going to take the crap, I thought was pretty impressive in my eyes. And I kind of felt a little bit sorry for him towards the end.
Yeah, no, 100%. Jerry Krause is quite a crazy guy. Like, the way he got that job, when I think he mentioned in the show that he just walked up to what was his name, Reinsdorf, and said, I want to be the GM. And he was just a scout in the MLB. And Reinsdorf was like, okay. And then he built up, he brought Chicago as the GM. Look, it makes it very clear in the show that the players win your championship, which I 100% agree with, but he did put the pieces together to get there.
And that they touch on that quite a bit in the podcast. Like Michael Jordan talks about it when, he came out with that quote and saying, players don't win championships, the organization wins championships. And that got quite a bit of backlash. But I think, to your point, Vince, is yes, he did a great job structuring the team and building the team around Michael. And that's what they did in episode 2 when they, snuck into the playoffs as the 8 seed after, his big foot injury and, they went up against the top-seeded Celtics in 86. They rebuilt that team to structure around Michael. And yes, okay, Krause deserves a lot of credit, but I think where the tension came from was the credit never goes to the front office. It never does. And like Michael said, it's, the organization and the front of house puts players together, but the players ultimately go and win the championship. And he's right. So I think what annoyed Jerry Krause was the fact that he wasn't getting credit. Jerry Krause wasn't getting credit. And that's what I think pissed people off.
It's weird how it said in the show, like it said when he put him, they put him on the Michael Jordan on the minutes restrictions in his sophomore season. They had like the 15 minutes a half, was it 7 minutes a half or something? And then they said, and from that day on, there was a real issue with the relationship between Michael Jordan and the front office. But that was very early on, and he played with them for like another 10 years. So it's hard to believe that their relationship was that strained for the next 10 years. I did find that a bit strange.
We see all the time that the players are on minutes restriction, but it's for the benefit of them. And like the the infamous quote in this is the owner Jerry Reinfeldt was like, "Hey, you had a headache, and I gave you 10 headache pills. 9 were good, 1 wasn't. Would you take it?" And Michael Jordan was like, "It depends how bad the headache is." You know what I mean? So, but they're doing it out of the benefit of him and the team, whereas the competitive spirit from the players sort of boils over. Again, we could talk about it for days, but we won't hear whether it's good or bad or who's right, who's wrong. But, I mean, I don't know. Do you guys have anything to add on that?
I think you're right with just the competitive nature of Michael Jordan and how strongly he wanted to play. And again, you got to remember, he was still very young when this happened and they put those restrictions on him. Just that mentality he had, I don't think fully he could comprehend or understand the bigger picture. And I think that's what the front of house is for. They're there to see the long term, the bigger picture. Those players are in the moment, in the minute. They're wanting to win a championship. And at the end of the day, that front of house is looking at the long term, structure of a team. And I think that just, I think the episode definitely dramatized it a lot more than it, was, obviously, for good TV. But yeah, I just think that competitive nature of Michael really, it could have stuck with him for 10 years just because of what you see in front of you, just how competitive he is and that mentality he had. It could have stuck with him for 10 years because of how he is, his personality.
Yeah, like went against his ideal and who he stood for, I guess, as a competitor and as a man. So that doesn't surprise me that someone, if they believe that is broken, that kind of trust, I guess, within, or faith, whatever you'd call it. I could understand why he would hold that grudge. Whether I'll do it or not is a different story, or anyone else, but I can see from his perspective. That's again what these 2 episodes have highlighted so far, specifically about MJ, is just who he was as like a person, I guess. And it's really fun to watch because I definitely grew up watching his videos and his highlights, and it's what inspired me to play basketball and to find out more about the man behind it. It's great.
I think, just lastly, I think it is very hard, and I think it's still very hard for a lot of players nowadays. You know, the organization is trying to see what's their better position. Their position before the playoffs, you know, the Bulls weren't looking like they were, you know, going to win another championship. They, you know, weren't in a very good position when Michael had that injury and was taken off. They were just thinking about their next lottery pick and how they can improve themselves, you know, for the next year. And I think for players now, it's extremely hard to go through that mentally going, you know, all I want to do is put in 100%, but my organization is telling me, you know, this season's already scrapped, let's just focus on the next one. I think this show in that episode really highlighted that rift, I guess, or that difference between, you know, people in the front office and their mentality for the players. I thought was good to see as well. It gives me a good understanding of the mentality of players and how hard it can be sometimes.
Yeah, no, well said, Vince. Very well said.
And they got into the playoffs with only winning 30 games too. So, you know, the bottom of the East must have been pretty bad in the 1986 season.
And they versed Boston 6 times. I was like, well, that's a big season series.
As some people say, that 86 Boston Celtic team could be the greatest team of all time. And Michael Jordan went for 64 on him in Game 2. That was really cool to see.
That was really great.
Well, I think it was good. The quote they said, like, it wasn't Michael Jordan on the basketball court. It was God disguised as Michael Jordan. I thought that was fantastic.
A classic Larry Bird.
Yeah.
Gives you chills, man.
Fantastic episodes. Just can't wait for episode 3 and 4 already. Counting down.
I do have a quick trivia for you guys from episode 2. I thought this was pretty interesting.
Fire away, mate.
Because, Johnny, you mentioned earlier that, you know, this team was so, you know, renowned at winning. Scottie Pippen wasn't there to start the season with the whole ankle thing or foot injury. They started 4-4 to begin the season. They weren't very good. They started 0-4 on the road, and they went to the Clippers, who were, you know, the laughing stock of the NBA at the time, and they beat him in 2 OT. So second overtime, they pulled out a victory behind Michael Jordan's 41 or 43 or whatever it was. So, and I saw the final score was 111 to 102. And I was like, damn, second overtime, that is a low score. So my trivia for you guys is, 5 games that went to 2 OT this season, right? 2019-20 season. I want you to guess what the highest number of points scored in one of those games was. So I'll give you a hint. The game...
Cumulatively?
No. The team that won, how many points did they score in second overtime? I'll give you a hint. The game was between Charlotte and Atlanta.
Yeah.
Or
160 or something.
Lower.
154.
Lower.
It was like 143 or something.
Oh, Johnny's got it right. 143.
Hey! Better David Henley.
Who won?
Atlanta.
Atlanta won.
Was it?
Yeah, it was.
Okay.
How many did Trae Young put up that game?
He had
like a 40 piece, didn't he?
Because he hit the 2 free throws to put it into the game because one of the Martin brothers on Charlotte fouled him or something. They could have won that game if he fouled him. I thought that was pretty interesting because, you know, they only scored 111 in 2 OT. And I was like, damn, that is not a lot of points.
I know. Well, it wasn't the double overtime back when Jordan scored 64 in Game 2. Wasn't that 130 or something a piece? Or 132?
Yeah, no, that was a high-scoring game.
Yeah.
That was just regulation, though.
Oh, was it? No, it was 1 overtime.
Oh, was it overtime, was it?
Yeah, Game 2 with the round 1 of the playoffs with Boston against
Oh, okay, sorry. I thought it was regulation.
Chicago in that.
I also thought it was pretty interesting, given like how much the game has changed since then, because when Michael Jordan got drafted,
Yeah, dramatically.
they were like, even if Chicago had the number 1 pick, they're picking Hakeem, who is a safe pick. The guy's a top 10 player of all time. But like in the number 2 pick, they picked Sam Bowie, who was a big, and they were saying Michael Jordan's not 7 foot. He's not big. But like now,
man's game, man.
Yeah, it was a huge man's game. You had to be big, and so now it's like the complete opposite. You want guards, you want smaller guys. And we're seeing, guys like Trae Young who are, barely scratching 6 foot, Kemba Walker just dominating the league. Whereas back then it was the big guys. So I thought it's pretty interesting to see how the league and the game has changed. and this guy's still considered the greatest player of all time.
Imagine Trae Young playing in like the 80s, like against those types of teams.
He'd be sitting on the bench, Gianni. I don't think we'd see him be playing.
He'd be the water boy, mate.
It is crazy. I really like that point. It's a good comparison how it's evolved. Yeah. It's been good having this, and whilst the season's off at the moment.
Yeah, no, for sure.
It is. It's certainly better than the 2K tournament, the horse challenge. That's for sure.
Yeah, those are terrible. Sorry, NBA, but
anyway, I hope we keep making these reaction series. It's a pleasure at the Trap to bring you these reaction videos and tell you our thoughts. It's fantastic to talk about. A lot of fun.
Definitely, I agree. Keeps us busy,
But we do have plenty of other content coming out at the moment. Louis been working real hard like a Trojan horse. And if you want to not miss any of our other content, where can you find it? Louis?
Yeah, so you can find us at Twitter and Instagram at TTPNBA. You can also find us at Facebook at facebook.com/TrapNBA podcast. And then you can send us an email at thetrappodcast@gmail.com. That is the Trap Podcast with 1P at gmail.com.
Beautiful. Yeah. Well said, Louis. You rattled them off so well.
Yeah, I've been doing it for like 3 years now, and it's just always stayed stagnant. So maybe I'm doing it wrong.
Nah, mate, you're doing it beautifully. But that's about it for tonight's episode?
Yeah, man.
Yeah, well, make sure you tune back in, Trappers, for next week when we talk about episode 3 and 4. Well, same time, same place.
Lock it in.
Sounds good. It's been a pleasure, guys.
Pleasure.
All right, see you next time.